There was a time when no one outside Puerto Rico knew his name. No stadium lights, no billion streams, no global headlines. Just a young man stacking shelves in a supermarket in Vega Baja. Headphones on, writing lyrics between shifts. The fluorescent lights buzzed above him. The air smelled faintly of detergent and cardboard. And in his pocket was a phone filled with unfinished verses. Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio. He wasn't supposed to become a global icon. He didn't look like the industry blueprint. He didn't sing in English. He didn't soften his accent. He didn't dilute his culture. And yet somehow he didn't just enter the global stage. He redesigned it. This is the story of how Bad Bunny built an empire without asking for permission. Before the fame, before the Grammys, before Coachella headlines and sold-out stadium tours, there was SoundCloud. There were raw uploads recorded with limited equipment, sometimes imperfect, sometimes distorted, but always unmistakably real. His voice didn't sound polished. It sounded lived in. There was vulnerability in it, melancholy, swagger mixed with sadness, humor layered over social commentary. He wasn't just making reggaeton, he was reshaping it. The Latin trap movement was rising, but it still lived in the margins of mainstream culture. Spanish music was often boxed into Latin categories. If you wanted global success, the industry quietly suggested you switch languages. Benito didn't. That decision alone was revolutionary. When Soy Peor began circulating online, it wasn't just a song. It was a signal. A new voice had arrived, one that didn't fit neatly into the industry's expectations. Soon came collaborations, recognition, momentum. But here's what people misunderstand about overnight success. It never happens overnight. Behind the viral moments were years of obsession, writing constantly, experimenting with sounds, watching how culture shifted online, understanding that streaming had broken old rules. If radio once controlled the gates, the internet had cracked them open. Bad Bunny didn't wait to be chosen. He positioned himself where the world was already looking. When I Like It with Cardi B exploded globally, something historic happened. A fully Spanish verse dominated English language charts. The numbers were undeniable. The demand was undeniable. The industry had to adjust. And then came the albums that changed everything. X, 100, P, R, E, Y, H, L, Q, M, D, L, G. El Último Tour del Mundo. Each project wasn't just commercially successful. It was culturally disruptive. When El Último Tour del Mundo became the first all-Spanish album to debut at #1 on the Billboard 200, it wasn't just a statistic. It was a shift in power. For decades, global success meant adapting to the English-speaking market. Suddenly, the market was adapting to him. But building an empire is never just about numbers, it's about control. And that's where Bad Bunny separated himself from the rest. He didn't just make hits, he curated identity. He blurred gender norms in fashion. He appeared on magazine covers wearing skirts, painted nails, bold silhouettes. Not as a gimmick, as a statement. In a genre often defined by hyper-masculinity, he redefined what strength could look like. Confident enough to challenge expectations. Comfortable enough to disrupt tradition. Famous enough to amplify the message. And then there were the moments of open resistance. When protests erupted in Puerto Rico in 2019, demanding the resignation of Governor Ricardo Rossello, Bad Bunny didn't stay silent. He joined the streets. He stood with the people. He used his platform not just to entertain, but to pressure power. This wasn't a carefully managed PR move. It was personal. Because before he was global, he was Puerto Rican. And he never let the world forget it. That loyalty to language, to culture, to home became the foundation of his empire. But empires come with weight. Imagine this, every album expected to break records. Every tour expected to outsell the last. Every public appearance dissected. Every silence analyzed. When you reach the top, you're no longer climbing, you're defending. There's a loneliness to that altitude. In interviews, Benito has spoken about the pressure, about exhaustion, about the strangeness of fame. How surreal it feels to walk into arenas filled with tens of thousands screaming lyrics he once wrote alone. Fame magnifies everything. Success, criticism, expectation, isolation. And yet he keeps moving, because the empire he built wasn't accidental. It was strategic. He understood streaming culture before many artists did. He understood that global youth culture no longer needed translation. Rhythm travels, emotion travels, authenticity travels. Language is no longer a barrier. Energy is universal. When he headlined Coachella, it wasn't just a performance, it was a declaration. Spanish dominated one of the most iconic American festival stages. The crowd sang along, not perfectly, not fluently, but passionately. That moment proved something powerful. You don't have to assimilate to dominate. You can remain yourself and still take over the world. But here's the deeper truth. Bad Bunny didn't just conquer charts. He expanded what global stardom looks like. He proved that a Puerto Rican artist, singing primarily in Spanish, rooted deeply in his culture, could outstream, outsell, and out-influence the traditional pop machine. He didn't wait for permission from legacy media. He didn't wait for validation from old industry executives. He built direct relationships with listeners. And in the streaming era, listeners are power. That's the new empire. Not controlled by radio, not controlled by gatekeepers, controlled by attention. And Bad Bunny mastered attention, not through scandal, not through artificial controversy, but through consistency. Project after project, tour after tour, statement after statement. Even his silences are strategic. When he steps back, speculation grows. When he returns, anticipation explodes. Scarcity fuels demand. Mystery fuels myth. And myth is the final layer of empire, because eventually, numbers fade. But narrative remains. The narrative of the kid from Vega Baja who refused to translate himself. The narrative of the artist who broke Billboard history without switching languages. The narrative of the global icon who carried Puerto Rico onto the biggest stages in the world. That story is bigger than charts. It's about cultural gravity. Today, when new Latin artists rise, they rise into a world already reshaped by him. The ceiling is higher because he cracked it open. And here's the part that makes this story extraordinary. He did it on his terms. No apology, no dilution, no permission. From grocery aisles to global arenas. From SoundCloud uploads to stadium dominance. From local voice to global force. The empire wasn't handed to him. He built it, brick by brick, stream by stream, stage by stage. And maybe the most powerful part of all, he did it without abandoning who he was. In a world that constantly pressures artists to conform, to translate, to soften, to standardize, Bad Bunny expanded the definition of what global means. Global doesn't mean English. Global doesn't mean polished. Global means undeniable. And that's what he became, undeniable. Because in the end, this isn't just a story about music. It's about power shifting. It's about culture no longer waiting to be invited into the room. It's about a generation that grew up online, borderless, choosing authenticity over assimilation. Bad Bunny didn't just ride that wave, he became its symbol. And symbols outlive trends. The supermarket employee with headphones on could never have predicted this scale, but maybe deep down, he believed something radical, that the world would eventually come to him. And it did. Not because he asked, but because he insisted. Without permission, without translation, without compromise. That's how you build an empire. And that's how Bad Bunny changed the game forever.